Now it's on. Okay. So Demet has raised the issue about ingredient branding, and I want to first distinguish it from co-branding. There are two important concepts which are very prevalent in high tech. Co-branding is two independent brands coming together to do some joint marketing campaign. Okay, and what that usually involves is some exchange of payments where, or some incentives where both the brands agree to be on the product itself or the packaging or to be used in promotional materials or advertising, right? And the issue about co-branding is that the two brands could be even from independent companies, right? So we see this a lot in terms of hardware software joint promotions, right? So Apple and Microsoft back in the day, when they were promoting Macintosh with Microsoft Office products, right? So these are two different brands, and they would appear in joint advertising and promotions. Buy a Macintosh because it has all these software tools that are useful from Microsoft. So that's one example of co-branding. Okay. So when you get to ingredient branding is a subset of co-branding. And the interesting part is that whereas in the earlier example, the two brands, one doesn't have to one doesn't absolutely depend on the other for working, right? Because Apple Macintosh could work with their own software programs. Macintosh had its own Word program and its own spreadsheet and things like that. So the two products are complementary. In the Apple Microsoft example, one can work without the other. Microsoft Office can work on non Macintosh computers. But in ingredient branding, one of the brands has to physically depend on the other brand to work, physically work. Okay, so the example that I've used in the video is Samsung running Android, right? The Samsung handset is absolutely dependent on the Android operating system, but Android is a brand of Google. Google owns it. Samsung doesn't own it. So, the operating system is an ingredient into the smartphone without which the smartphone will not work, right? So that's a special case of co-branding, and again, both of the brands can be displayed on the product, on the packaging, or in terms of advertising and promotions. And there are agreements on some incentives that are exchanged between the two. This practice of ingredient branding in high tech, it was pioneered by Intel some 2 decades ago with their campaign called Intel Inside, right? Even today, I think you can find laptops and things like that, PCs where the brand may be Dell or HP, but it will have some logo with Intel inside or some other Intel brand logo. And Intel actually had to pay big money to the PC manufacturers for this privilege. Okay, so again, the Intel microprocessor is an ingredient into the laptop and the PC. The laptop or PC couldn't work without that ingredient, and that caused this more and more trend. And we see that even in consumer markets. You can have diet cola with some kind of particular sugar, like a brand of sugar substitute called stevia or something like that. So you could have Diet Coke with stevia as the two co-brands on a can of Diet Coke. So ingredient brands are available both in consumer goods as well as in business goods and high tech. So those are some examples. Now, the reason why it's not everywhere seen is that it costs money, right? If you want your ingredient to be part of the end user brand of product, then you have to negotiate a deal, and it costs money just like any other advertising. So you know, and it also has the benefit of bringing credibility to the supplier of the ingredient. If the supplier of the ingredient is a small company or a startup, but the end product is well established, then the ingredient brand can get some reputational transfer from the end user brand. And it can work the other way as well, that if the ingredient brand is well established but the end user brand is not, then the the reputation transfer can occur from the ingredient to the finished product. So it works both ways. And of course, there are risks as well, because if there's a problem with the ingredient and there's a glitch, then the end user brand has to take the hit for it. And similarly, there could be some kind of blame game. If there are some technical problems, then is the problem with the ingredient or is the problem with the rest of the product? So there are some interesting risks that also need to be taken. But clearly, the value to the consumer is that two brands are better than one brand. You're getting you're getting more in terms of value, in terms of assurance of quality, in terms of the network and the support systems of both companies. So this is the benefits as well as the drawbacks that I have tried to summarize. Now, Demet, I would like you to share some other examples.
Yes, well, what I come across with this Teflon example, which I found it really interesting, that the brand is like take its name like from one of their compound, and then it's manufactured by DuPont, and now actually we are hearing more Teflon than DuPont itself, so which was very interesting for me to read about that.
Yes, and what is the end product in which the Teflon is being, marketed together with?
Um, it's like it's positioned as a fabric in the surface production product actually.
Okay, so it's a ingredient into some B2B products
Yes, yes.
for more strength and protection.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah, I've seen it also in consumer goods, right? Like frying pans in the kitchen,
yes.
Teflon coated.
Teflon. Yeah. Yeah, I'm using a lot.
So, again, Teflon is a very old established brand from DuPont. And,
Yes.
and DuPont generally likes to promote its polymers as
Mhm.
independent brands, which is why they don't emphasize. Although DuPont is a very established 100-year-old company, they want their brands to stand alone in the
Mhm.
marketplace. Uh, there are many companies which want to promote internal competition between their brands, you know, like Procter and Gamble, Tide, Cheer. These are two brands of detergents, but we don't know. The consumer doesn't know they are both from Procter and Gamble, but they are so confident of the strength of each brand, and they are positioned at different segments. So they want to promote that internal competition. And DuPont, DuPont has many different coatings and many different polymers, right? Like spandex is a polymer, nylon is a polymer, but they will brand them all separately because they are strong brands.
Yes, also like in the beverage sector, I think we have many examples that like the Coca-Cola and the many brands. I didn't know that like they owned many brands in different target markets and
Yeah.
yep.
Sometimes the Coca-Cola brands are acquired from local domestic countries, right?
Yes.
So, you know, this is very interesting. I just digress a little bit from high tech, but, you know, Coca-Cola has a very highly protected formula, right? It's been a trade secret for 100 years, and uh, it should be pretty easy for a chemist to analyze the composition of Coke and reverse engineer it. But and that's what many manufacturers in other countries have done, is that they've tried to bring out their own version of Coke, and some of them come pretty close, but nobody's been able to hit on it 100%. and and then Coke, if it finds the market share became very high, like, you know, in India there's a local brand called Thumbs Up, and Coke just went and bought out the whole company when their market share went up. So they want to preserve that, because if they were to impose Coca-Cola on it, it won't have the same brand strength as Thumbs Up in the Indian market. So sometimes the Coke brands, they have so many. Some of them come from acquisitions.
Mhm.
Okay, good. So we've discussed channel conflict, and we've discussed co-branding and ingredient branding. I would like to invite other people to please participate. What are the topics that you wrote about, or, you know, saw in the chapters or the video? We're discussing channels, pricing, branding, and communications. Are there things, topics of interest that you would like to bring up?
Hello.
Hi, Ani.
I have a question about the Moore's law.
Uh-huh.
That in Moodle someone writes only about these chips, but it goes with other high-tech products also. So my question is that isn't 18 months quite a long time now, because the technology is so advanced already?
Okay, good question. So, you know that Moore's law, by its very name, it was proposed by Gordon Moore, who was one of the co-founders of Intel in the 1970s. So, you know, it's about more than 45 year old law. But of course, it is a social science law. It's not a law of physics, right? Social science is that more often than not it happens, but it doesn't happen in 100% of the cases, right? So this was what was based on his experience of etching circuits onto silicon chips, right? The whole chemical process is that you take some wafer of silicon and then you make a circuit on it in a very fine way, right? And that's how you create these microprocessors. So microprocessor has many different uh, circuits with transistors and other components, but they've all been etched chemically. And this is what he observed, that actually first he proposed that every 24 months the performance of those microprocessors can double. And then, because the technology of the chemistry labs improved, they shortened it already to 18 months. Okay. So, and then other people said that it doesn't only apply to microprocessors, any electronics, right? Because all electronics use circuits and transistors and diodes and those kind of components. So any type of electronics, we should have the same learning curves and the same price economics. So it was generalized by other people. It was not Moore. Moore was more specific to microprocessors, but other people in the industry said that yes, it applies to all kinds of electronics. And then, you can say that in terms of the end product, the life cycles are shrinking, right? So we used to use TVs for much longer as consumers. Now our replacement cycles have become shorter because newer and better technology with higher resolution becomes available, right? We can say that the life cycle of microwaves have shrunk because we are able to get better microwaves within 2 years, and we don't use more than that, right? And so at the product level, I think we are seeing shorter and shorter cycles. But if you look at the basic component technology, which is still microprocessors, right? There now we are seeing the limits of Moore's law. Why? Because the more and more circuits you etch on a single piece of wafer, one of the negative side effects is that it generates heat. And if something becomes hotter, then it interferes with the electron movement. Okay, so now we are seeing that there is some limit, which is why now companies like Intel and others have moved to dual processors. When you reach the limit on one chip, you have to go to two chips to generate less heat. And so now we are seeing multiple core processors, different layout. So that's some of the evolution behind it. Clearly we take it more in terms of, it's inevitable that prices will go down in anything that uses microprocessors. Prices will go down over time. We won't quibble about the exact time frame. That can be a little bit flexible, but we are seeing life cycles shrinking of end products, and that's a different phenomenon. That's due to obsolescence. If a better technology becomes available, as consumers, we will replace the old stuff that we have, right? So Moore's law. Another formulation of Moore's law is, if you keep the performance the same, then the price will become half, right? And so that's what you see some of the smartphone manufacturers doing, right? The price of a iPhone will be $800 even for newer models, right? But their performance will double for the new one, and then for the old models they will cut the price. So currently, in addition to iPhone 14, Apple is also marketing iPhone 13 and others, but the price is being dropped considerably. So those are the pricing implications of Moore's law. That I hope. Yes.
So does what you said, that they will keep everything similar and cut the prices for the older products? So does this go with that the network is growing, or is it just one aspect of the Moore's law?
No, it's just an aspect of the Moore's law, independent of the size of the network. It's a decision that the company makes in terms of cutting price, but it's able to do that because it has learned more and it has got more experience, right? Very good. Let's have some other topics. What was of interest to you in channels, pricing, branding, communications? So I'm going to share my screen and show you a survey of top global brands from Interbrand. That's a company, a consulting company, and this is the latest survey from 2022. I'm sorry, 2021. 22 is not over yet. But these are the top 25 brands. So it starts with Apple, and you know what those numbers tell you is that compared to the previous year, Apple's brand value has gone up by 26%, and currently the value of the Apple brand is some 408,000 million. Am I reading that correctly? It's in dollar million. So that's almost $408 billion is the Apple brand. Amazon's is about 249 billion. And then if you go down to 25, Honda's brand value declined 2% from 2020, and its value is some $21.3 billion. Now, how do they do this survey? The brand value is a monetary value. So they actually do a couple of things. One is they send questionnaires to the chief financial officers at the headquarters of these companies. We're only considering the corporate brand name, not the individual product brands, right? And then they ask them to make projections of their revenues and costs in the future, and then they discount the net present value of the future profits of the company. So this is actually the value of the brand. If Apple was to just completely close down and sell its brand to somebody else, they would ask for that kind of a price. Okay. So then they validate it. So they don't accept just the chief financial officer's version, but they do their own estimates internal to the consulting company. They also try to make projections based on past history, because all of these are public companies. Their financial, their historical financial performance is available. So then they will run some models to do a cross check, and then they do some kind of averaging of the company's estimate and their own estimate and come up with this. So let me pause and see what do you notice? Are there anything that stands out in terms of this chart or table that I've put up? What do you notice? Oh, sorry, I should keep.
There are many car brands in first 25 companies. That's what I recognize. Well, automotive industry. So Tesla, Toyota, Mercedes, Honda.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Do you see a similar pattern for any other industry apart from autos? Very few. Yes, go ahead.
Well, it's just I was gonna say that like some technology brands that we are using like daily basis. So phone, computer producers, and
Yeah. In fact, to me, it's clear that technology brands dominate the 25. So let's count them. There's Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Samsung, Tesla would be probably also a tech company in addition to just being an auto company. Then count Cisco, Intel, IBM, SAP, Adobe, So you can see that the technology brands clearly are more than just the auto company brands. And consumer brands are very few. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Disney, Nike, Louis Vuitton, right? So isn't that interesting that the top out of the top 25 brands, technology brands dominate both B2B as well as B2C, right? And to me, this is consistent every year. I've followed this survey for more than 20 years, and every year it's the tech brands that are dominant. And to me, the explanation is that brands are more important in technology than in low tech because of the high uncertainty. So would you agree that when you have high levels of market uncertainty, technology uncertainty, and competitive volatility, then consumers need more assurance from the brand than Coca-Cola or Nike, which the technology has been pretty stable for a long period of time. We are so familiar, we know about those brands, right? There's not much uncertainty with consumer brands. So this is the insight, is that in tech we have to pay more attention to branding, and especially for startups which start with zero level of brand. It is so hard, it costs so much of money that startups have a disadvantage. And that's really good to think about. What does the theory tell you about how to build a strong brand from scratch? Anybody recalls from your watching of the videos or reading of the chapters, what are the theory guidelines for how do you build a strong brand?
Well, attractive name, and the symbol and the design and the slogan.
Right? That's the first step. The first step is to create the brand elements which can be registered legally as the trademark, right? They have to be attractive, they have to be visually exciting, they have to be unique, otherwise they will not be trademarked, right? So the first step, as Annie pointed out, is you have to build the visual identity of the brand. Okay, then what do you do?
Built on the awareness. Start advertising. Start bringing it that it's something, and do it big.
What if you're a startup and you don't have the big budgets to begin with?
Then you go through online or so. I mean, whatever is the way that you can basically build your awareness that this brand is existing.
And also maybe it's important to use the user experience, the previous user experience.
Yes, I think that's really important. What you just said, Annie, is that you have to spend more on the product itself, because that contributes the most to user experience. So if a startup has limited resources, it has to first build out the product. And if you have a good product, if you have a unique technology, then the media will pick up and write stories about it. So it does get to Anti's point that you have to build awareness, but you must have a product about which you build the awareness, right? So, you know, when you say user experience, it really has to do with the experience of the product or the service, the functionality, the performance, the benefits. What does it do for the customer?
Which likely would differentiate even from the existing what you have in the market.
Yes,
if
absolutely.
if possible.
And here the example of Google is very instructive. So first of all, if you take the brand elements, what does the name Google mean to you? Anybody? When it was a startup, I'm going back to 1998. It was a couple of Stanford University students who were encouraged by their professor to build this search engine, and they trademarked the name Google. So does that convey anything to you? The name itself?
Is it some sorts of like glasses or something? It's kind of like a remind me of like goggles. Like I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
It also gave rise to a verb googling, so it's very popular.
Right. So that's the association some people have. It sounds like goggles, or the verb came later, right? Googling has become a verb because of Google. It wasn't there in 1998. So, you know, anybody else knows the history of the brand name Google? So, you know, these two founders, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they were very into computer science and mathematics. And one of their idols was a Russian mathematician named Gogol, Gogol. Okay, so
Totally
and-
irrelevant. Yeah.
but again, you know, that's just to tell you the inspiration, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that.
And so the people who were in that nerdy community, those who understand algorithms, for them it mattered. Okay, that actually now I think there is a certain exponent also called Gogol. The name was transferred to some number to the power of something very large. So again, it indicates scale or magnitude, right? So they started out with that name Google, but they didn't have big budgets for advertising. It was in the uniqueness of the algorithm which gave more relevant results that caused people to spread the word of mouth, and then the media picked up that it's so much better than Yahoo as a search engine, right? Because they were able to solve a very complex mathematical problem, which is the page rank. You know, how many links are pointing to any web page? If more people are linking their page to your page, it means that there's something interesting on your page, and therefore you will rank higher. But that's an extremely complex set of equations to solve. And these two young guys were able to do that. And so that's what we mean by the user experience. If their search results is head over heels above every other search engine, then it was not the first, it was not at all a pioneer, but because it had such an important relative advantage, it catapulted into first place. And then it became even bigger with the search ads for the pay per click. So it's very important. We have to have a good brand elements, the visual identity, then we have to have the user experience. Then what are some additional steps after you've got a good user experience? What should you do as a company or a startup? We were trying to figure out what is the guidelines for how to build a strong brand. What's the third step?
Well, if we again assume that they don't have that much money, so the employees can be the ambassadors
Very good.
to promote it.
Absolutely. You know, who is better, who is more passionate than the people that you hired early on? You know, why would somebody join a unknown startup only if they are passionate about it? Because they're taking a huge risk on their career, right? So they believe in something, they believe in a vision, they want to change the world, right? So your employees should be the ones to spread the word. We call them as our internal brand ambassadors. You know, wear some t-shirts or caps, and participate in some public activities like running a race or something that's covered on television, right? This is called guerrilla marketing. I'll write it here in the chat. Have you heard this term? Guerrilla marketing. Did my message come?
I don't think so.
Oh, sorry, it went to one individual instead of everyone. Guerrilla, Guerilla. Guerrilla marketing, this comes from some type of rebellion or coup, right? There are small bands of rebels or guerrillas who hide out in the hills, and they come out at night and then they attack, So if you're a small startup without any big budgets, what do? You give t-shirts or caps to your employees and say, okay, there's going to be a London marathon. Let's run in it. And if our costumes are colorful, then the TV cameras will go to it, right? So you're getting natural coverage free from the media instead of, paying for it. So these are some of the ways that creative smarts have to compensate for big budgets. But the important thing is use your employees as internal and external brand ambassadors. And they don't all have to be in marketing. You might not have that many people in marketing, but anybody can, again, this is where I believe marketing is everybody's job, starting from the CEO down, especially in a startup where you have few employees. Everyone has to promote the brand and create that awareness to begin with. Would you agree? Anybody has any good examples to share of guerrilla marketing, or what are you doing? Some of you work in startups. What are you doing as brand ambassadors to spread the word? Participating in charity events is another. We have startup companies here who will give their employees one day off to work in the city cleaning trash, and they will also be dressed in costume, and then the PR people will contact the news media and say, look, our employees are doing some good work for the city. We are a socially responsible company, right? So those are, you can tie up some employee participation into community events, which will not cost that much of money as advertising.
I don't have an example based on the employees, but I can give this like interesting marketing that I saw. This the beer brand like Tiski, they created this door stickers as a beer, and then like the doorknob that like we are opening is kind of like a handle of the beer glass. So that was interesting. We can include it in the guerrilla marketing. So,
Did they have beer in them?
yes, well, it's just like it looks like with the beer with the bubbles, and when you're like opening the door, it's just like
Ah, but
just like
it's
with
not, it doesn't have the drink inside.
yeah,
No
well,
sampling.
no sampling, but it's like basically it looks really tasty, and
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea to promote it like that way. So why not? I will get this Tiske beer when I enter
sure,
the bar.
sure.
So
And it might include a discount coupon of some sort.
yeah.
Very good. Thank you for sharing, Demet. Any other examples to share? Okay, so we've got the 3 steps of building a strong brand. We start out with the visual identity, then we emphasize the user experience, then we use our employees as brand ambassadors, and then what's the 4th step? So the 4th step is associating with other organizations and other entities outside the company. So uh, if you have the money, you could, have some celebrity endorsers, or again, participating in social causes which will attract media attention. So now instead of just using your employees, you leverage relationships with other companies. You might do some, you know, co-marketing, co-branding, or if you have the means to have celebrity endorsers, that's not cheap, but those do work quite a bit. You have so many spokespersons, touting the products and services of both big and small companies. So that's how you try to build out a strong brand. Okay, what other topics would you like to discuss from channels, pricing, branding, or communications? Let me go through some of the homeworks and see if there's any comments I want to make. Oh, yeah. I wanted to have some discussion on viral marketing, but let's take a break. Let's do a 5-minute break. Come back at 9:05. I'm sorry, at 17:05 for your time, right? No,
Yes. Yes.
19:05.
19.
19:05.
1905. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Hello, I'm back from my break and I hope you can be back as well.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming back, and again, an invitation to anybody who would like to put on their video camera. That would be nice and friendly, but thanks to Anti and Ani for being willing to do that. So, we were having some interesting discussions on different aspects of channels, pricing, branding, and communication, especially in high tech. And one of the topics that I would like to bring up now is on viral marketing. This was one of the topics in the homework. So let's try to have some discussion on it. What do you recall about anybody can summarize what viral marketing is?
I could try to be very short with this one.
Yes,
I
please.
observed it that it's basically a voluntary marketing what we do among each other. It doesn't need to be friends, but we are passing just the word to people that this product is good to look at this. This is really useful and handy for any purposes, and then the message starts to spread around the society. I observe that way.
Can we
Yeah.
say like organic word of mouth to just
Yes.
like if we describe it?
Yes, it
Like
is
what-
word of mouth, and it is organic in the sense that people are motivated on their own to spread it. But then, what's the difference from traditional word of mouth, where in traditional communities you would meet over coffee or talk by phone? What's different about the new viral marketing? Is it the same as word of mouth? Then we don't need a different term, right?
I think the difference is that it uses technology to speed up the word of mouth.
Yes, that's where the term virus comes from, right? Now, normally we think of virus as negative, oh, something to be scared of. But in a marketing sense, we want to spread the message as fast as how a virus spreads, right? And we use technology to do that. So, the old methods were just on phone. Now you're using more Facebook and Twitter and, YouTube and TikTok, likes, right? Uh, so technology does two things. One is it lowers the price per contact, right? So if you can, instead of physical word of mouth, if you can use technology, it reduces the price per contact, the cost per contact, and it also speeds it up. So it has two major benefits. Viral marketing is fast and it's also lower cost than traditional word of mouth. Okay, so now let's take some examples. I'm sure all of us have experienced this, but what is memorable? What do you recall about some viral marketing that you have experienced? You can use the chat or speak into the microphone.
There was a once challenge, I think it was on Snapchat, and people were throwing their once shoes and they were saying onces always land on upside down. So everyone was taking a video of their once and throwing it. And it was a viral marketing and it was very popular 3 years ago, I think.
So thank you, Gune. What was the commercial product that they were spreading the message about?
Once sneakers.
One sneakers. Okay, I haven't seen it. Maybe if you could put the link in the chat, I will look at it later. Thank you. So, any type of humorous game or campaign right? I think Gune was talking about a game where you try to take a video of people flipping a shoe and landing upside down, right?
Hi. I think an interesting viral marketing for good example was the ALS bucket challenge. Does
Right.
everyone remember it? Recently, I read a post that says through that challenge, the proceeds that was collected through the ALS bucket challenge, they've actually found some kind of, they've done good with it. I should read that article again. I can't remember exactly what happened, but then through that challenge, they raised enough money to help fund something for this cause. So that was pretty viral. I think I did it. I don't know how many more people did it.
Yeah, thank you, Simonella. I remember that very well. This was started by the family of a young man in his late 20s who was afflicted by this disease. ALS is some kind of degenerative, disease which there was no cure for that. Maybe 10 years ago, there was no cure for that. And so the mother of this boy, she said this is unacceptable, and she and her family got together with thinking about this game that anybody who chooses to participate has to pour ice cold water onto their head and take a video of that, post it on YouTube. Then they have to nominate somebody else to undertake the ice bucket challenge. And guess what? Some celebrities got involved organically just because the mother wrote to them, contacted them, and said it's for a good cause. We want to raise money for research to have a breakthrough on this disease. And Bill Gates participated, so many celebrities, and every time they participated, they also donated some money, right, to the cause. And Simonella is right, now that there's been this is called the ALS Foundation, and they've donated money to so many universities and research institutes, and one experimental drug is under testing, which will help people. So this is a fantastic, they've raised, more than $500 million. So this is a great example of using viral marketing for a social cause, right? And so that's a great example, and I haven't participated in it myself, but I'm glad to hear that you have participated, Simonella. Okay.
Um, I participated in India,
Yeah.
but now that I'm in Finland, I regularly I swim Avanto, so I don't know.
Yeah.
You keep on challenging yourself.
It would be interesting to do a breakdown by country where the challenges have been more. And I know in Finland, people are used to the cold and jumping into the lake. So they should have, the hypothesis would be there should be a large number of ice bucket challenges there.
I also remember the Zoom virtual background challenge, like during the COVID time. So Zoom came up with this social media campaign contest and like giveaways. So the remote workers has to take a videos like monthly basis competition. So pictures and using like virtual backgrounds from Zoom. And if I remember correctly, they actually have over 50,000 extra people signed up like after this competition. And so it was like listed among the most successful viral marketing campaigns in 2022. 2020.
Yeah, and we know how Zoom rose during
Boom,
COVID,
yeah.
right? It
Yep.
was the viral campaign was very timely because the need was there. It was just spreading awareness that was important, right?
Yes. And also like it's actually motivated these users to try different features and come up with more creative videos while doing the challenge. So it was like a good value added service, I guess.
And how did they incentivize users to participate in the competition? Was there a prize?
Yes, there were some prize, but I don't remember. I think there was like some kind of a membership giveaways, and they were creating the contests like monthly basis, if I remember
Right.
correctly. Yeah.
Very good. So we have two good examples of viral marketing, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge as well as the Zoom background competition. Anybody else would like to share any examples of viral marketing that they have come across? Okay, so going from the examples, we have to now try to generalize some theory, right? What is it that motivates people to participate in spreading viral messages? So let's try to, move to that direction. Tell me, in terms of since we've all experienced various of these campaigns, what is it that makes some message viral and others fall by the wayside? So let's try to generalize. And again, you can put things in the chat or speak on the microphone.
I can bring two
Yes.
that I come up. One is that it brings some to the personal, to the consumer himself, some added value. The other one, I see that you belong to society, so you feel yourself as a member of something remarkable which is happening. So that's the other one, what I observed.
Okay, very good. So the first one was there has to be some value in the message for the user to pass it on. And the second is that you feel that you're a member of a community or a society and then you have a contribution to make. Right? Those are good
think it's-
points.
It's also important to follow the biggest phenomena of the century also, if it's like touching certain points that people are focusing in that century. Like we are mainly now like focus on sustainability, for example, and brands are like increasing their visibility in the green, like being more green. And so
Right. So they must follow some socio-cultural trends, right?
yes,
They
thanks.
must be consistent with those socio-cultural trends, capitalize on them. And I liked your first words, you want to be part of a big phenomenon, right? Like Simonella can feel that she's contributed to the, discovery of this drug, right, which will save lives. So you want to be a part of that. And it relates to Anti's point as well, that you're a member of this society. You have participated in creating some history, right? So those are important. Very good. Let's try to get some more generalizations. Any other principles? Gune's example of the one sneaker, what kind of, what motivates people to participate in that kind of a campaign?
Maybe people were just curious because they were saying they were advertising that if you throw up your sneaker, it always land on the sole. So, and it is entertaining. So they were
Right.
just trying and seeing the results.
Very good. So I think the entertaining is a common factor for many of those. You know, there are serious campaigns, but there are also things we pass on to our friends because we think that they are, you know, they are light and they will add a smile to their face, right? So many videos in TikTok and WhatsApp, they are passed around just to as a joke to share. Hmm? Any other points that cause a message to be, you know, because it does take some effort to shoot a video or participate in something. It takes time away from other activities. So the motivational thing is something marketeers have to pay attention to. You have to design the campaign to include these elements that will help to propagate the message. Any other thoughts? Okay, so I'm going to offer you some additional theory. I'm going to share my document camera. So I hope you can see my poor handwriting there. I've tried to write down the points that people have made. The first is added value to the consumer, member of society, contribution, follow a big phenomenon, socio-cultural trends, curious, entertaining. So, there's some research done by a professor called Jonah Berger at Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He's written a book called Contagious. Contagious is another way of saying viral, right? How things spread from one person to another. And he has this model which he calls STEPPS, steps. The first S stands for social currency. That means if you or I participate in any viral campaign, it enhances our social standing in our networks. Okay, so that the receivers say, okay, this is so cool that Simonella participated in this ALS challenge or something like that. So that's really important, is that does it give us something to talk about in our social circles, which will enhance the value, our own personal ego or whatever, right? We want to be socially current, so that helps. The second one is triggers. There has to be a trigger in the message, some personal connection, something dramatic or something emotional. That's the E. So, for the earliest part of the ALS campaign, the trigger was very emotional, that there's this young man, 26-year-old, whose health is deteriorating, right? So we've got to help him, right? So there are so many emotions, right? There's fear, there's humor, right? There's so many things. Emotion is always a good trigger for behavior. Okay, then P is, it should be public, that the message that you want to convey should not offend anybody. It should be something that anybody can see, right? It's not just something as a private conversation between two parties. So then this one is stories. And I forget one of these, but this is a very interesting kind of theory that he's tried to generate, and those are some of the things that came out in your comments. Is when you say added value to the consumer, that's like social currency, right? Does it enhance my social standing? Emotional triggers, being consistent with socio-cultural trends. So, initially viral marketing was a kind of guerrilla marketing where people with low budgets could do this, but it has become so successful that now there are specialized agencies which deal with viral marketing, and even large global companies are resorting to viral marketing campaigns. It's interesting that they also try to do this kind of grassroots marketing, even though they have no lack of budget. But these kind of organic campaigns will have more credibility and get people more engaged with the brand. So this is some things that I hope the more we should see more of in the future. Okay, so we're still on the topics of channels, pricing, communication, branding. Any other topics that you'd like to bring up from the homework, or any other things that you've seen or read?
Can I just quickly ask about the experience curve?
Yes, of course.
I have the book book here.
Yes.
So I think this was also in the lecture, this book, this picture.
Yes.
So what does it mean, this 90 and 70? Because if the experience was 90, so wouldn't it be steeper then? But now the steepest line is 70%.
Okay. So it seems a little counterintuitive, right? But the formula is that the new unit cost is 70% of the old unit cost. That's what makes it
Okay.
steeper.
Okay.
The new unit cost, if it's 90% of the old unit cost, it's flatter. But and in high tech, mostly we see steeper curves.
Yes, then it's clear. I just misread the
So
picture.
now what are the pricing implications of the experience curve? Let's talk about that. If high tech has high experience curves, and this also relates to Moore's law, which we discussed earlier, what can companies do? How can they benefit from this phenomenon? It is that you can be more aggressive about your pricing even at launch. We've looked at all the factors that there are some factors that push up the prices, right? Like high cost of R&D and salaries and so on. They tend to push up the unit costs, right? So normally high tech products, especially breakthrough products, will have a high price to begin with. But again, that price might become a barrier to adoption. So if you want to have quick adoption of a breakthrough product, and if you have steep experience curves, you could even price below cost to begin with. Because you know that in year 2, the new cost will be 70% of the old cost, so you will make margin. You might lose money in the first year, but if you're confident that your product has value and price is a barrier, you could be aggressive about your pricing in year 1, keep the same price in year 2 or year 3, but then the costs are going to decrease, so you will make profit later on. We see that in quite a few product categories, video game consoles for one. Some people say they're so aggressively priced, they don't recover all their costs. But why are they able to do it? For two reasons. One is they know that the console cost will come down, so they will make money. And then if it's a company that also produces the game software, then they can charge high margins on the complementary products, which subsidizes the cost of the console. Okay, so let's do a last.
How would you,
Yes.
sorry, one question. How would you observe to this logic all these additional changes now what are taking place now in the world at the moment, that the inflation is going high, all the microchips are running into shortage. So in this logic, what you just explained doesn't apply in all of the cases.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you pointed out, inflation is a very recent phenomenon, right? I mean, it's been there always, but at low percentages. And clearly now this is working against the logic of Moore's law and against the logic of the experience curve, because costs are going up. So this is a very strange time because everything is in chaos, right? You can see the example of what's happening in the UK, right? It's a comedy of errors there. And then so you have to realize that there are limits on all our social science theories, first of all, right? When we say social science, it works more often than not. But in this kind of an inflationary environment, if there's 10% rise in costs every year, then it contradicts whatever we know.
It's a mission impossible to establish that model that you would be selling in the first year lower than the cost.
Yes.
Because typically you are anyway aiming to cover the costs.
Right.
So it's a bit hard to forecast that then. Yes.
And so we have to draw the boundaries. That theory was under some stable environment, right? And now we know that this is not going to work. And it was also so during COVID, right? All the shocks that we got, the businesses never had to deal with those situations before. So yeah, it makes us humble about the role of theory. But another thing is to think about, the value of generating new theory, right? That's what a lot of research is aimed at. What are some of the new theories that might work to, control inflation or to manage the COVID-19. For example, we saw this new technology, mRNA, which was the breakthrough for creating the COVID vaccine. Would you agree? mRNA was a new way of targeting the virus, and it was developed within 12 months of the virus appearing. So fantastic breakthrough. So human ingenuity ultimately will find some solutions to these serious problems around us. Okay, are there any other topics that you wish to discuss from channels, pricing, communication, or branding? If not, I would like to move on to introduction to the case method, because now we are done with the theory part of this course. We've covered 12 chapters. We know some of the generalizations on how high-tech marketing needs to differ from low-tech marketing. And so now we are ready to go into the applications part of the course. So I'm going to pull up the course syllabus and then go over some of these issues. First of all, let's take a look at the teams over here. Just want to share my screen. So I think all of you know your place, which team you're in. Now, the thing is that there are 3 case assignments. What do we mean by these titles here? It means that groups 1, 2, and 3 have to do a live presentation on Zoom communications, and then they will write memos on the 2 other cases, L'Oreal and Verily. Okay? Groups 4, 5, and 6, they will do live presentations on L'Oreal and they will write case memos on Zoom and Verily. And then only one team has to make a presentation, live presentation on Verily, and all the other 6 teams will write this as a memo. Okay, so it's very clear, be very clear on what your assignment is. This is in the notes down here. And the schedule is that I'm going to come out to La Piranta and we'll be doing these cases live on November 21st, 22nd and 23rd. Okay, so those are important dates for all of you to mark in your calendars. That I know some of you are not in La Piranta, you may be in other parts of Finland, but on the day of your assigned case, you need to be present, and the schedule for that is available in Moodle. Let me again go there. So case seminar 1, it's on you have to submit the written case memo a week earlier, but the live presentation is going to be on 21st of November. Okay. Case 2, the case memo is due 1 week earlier on the 15th, but the presentation will be on the 22nd. And then case 3, there's an error on this date. It will be 23rd of November. I'll fix that later. That will be the live presentation, and the case memos will be due 1 week earlier on the 16th. So that's in terms of the schedule. So make it up, ideally I would like to have people present on all the 3 days so that you can comment and contribute to the learning of your classmates. But definitely everyone should be present for the live case presentation of their case. And hopefully if you can make it to the other days, that will be nice as well. Remember, I am making the trip all the way from San Francisco to La Piranta just for these 3 days. And that's the way the university wants it. Okay, now I'm going to go to the syllabus. Share my screen again. So, I'm sure you've done case analysis in other courses, but each course instructor has different expectations of what cases are about. So now I'm going to cover what are my expectations, and I'll give you a chance to ask questions. You can stop me at any time, just interrupt me. I'm not able to see the chat while I'm sharing, but you can take the microphone and interrupt me at any time. So let's go over these guidelines. So to me, this is very exciting because you've read all this theory, we've discussed it during these webinars, but now you really get to apply it to some real problems that companies face. So what are the skills that you will develop through this is analysis, problem solving, team working, presentation. All of these skills are important. Here are the learning outcomes. We've tried to put at least one international student in each team so that it becomes all of the issues in real global business can manifest them in some way during your process. Here's the format. Length of the written report is 3 pages, and for your presentation prepare for 20 minutes uninterrupted and then 5 minutes of Q&A. My view is that these cases are self-sufficient. You're not expected to do any outside research. And the reason for that is the following. Each case has a location and time setting. So now we are in October of 2022, but the cases were written in the past. So very likely if you do additional research on the web, it's not going to match up to the time setting of the case. So often you get all kinds of irrelevant data. Okay. Our purpose is to train you to make decisions with limited information. I would submit to you that no amount of market research is going to give you perfect information. At some point, you have to say, stop the research and let's go and make the decision. And that's the point at which these cases have to be analyzed. Okay. So again, don't waste time in trying to find outside research on the case. Yeah, these are long cases. You might have seen them already. So it will require, multiple readings just to get familiar with the facts of the case. And hopefully you can do that before you start meeting within your teams. Moodle has the places where you will upload your case memos, and then we will have discussions following the live case presentations at LUT. Also, we have this mechanism for you to do peer evaluations of your group members. And here's how I use that. So normally there's a default grade for the paper or the presentation which should be applicable to everybody the same. But if the workload report shows that somebody's been a leader in the group and contributed additionally, then the group grade, then that individual's grade could be adjusted upwards from the group grade. And at the same time, if somebody is identified as a free rider who hasn't done much work, then their individual grade could be adjusted downwards. So it's very important that you fill out this workload report. Okay, these are the standard disclaimers on plagiarism. We want you to develop your own thinking. Okay, I see that Demet would like to speak. Please go ahead.
I have a first question about the memos.
Yes.
We are still gonna do that as a group. So each group is gonna have like 2 memos, and is it all together 3 pages, or each case we are supposed to create 3 pages report?
Each case will have 3 pages report.
Okay.
And
So
the
altogether
whole
6
group
pages.
and the whole group has to submit just 1 report.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. These are important. Please feel free to ask for clarifications, because in an online course, this is the only time we have to clarify these things. Okay, let me go back to sharing the document? Okay. Now, this is a long note. I expect you to read this. You know, you're going to. This just explains that you know the case is a stylized account. It doesn't conform exactly to reality, and that's another reason why we want to discourage external research. Is that more or less the facts are similar, but sometimes the case writers do distort the actual reality because they want to focus on certain pedagogical issues. Okay, so again, if you come across some articles that say things were different, ignore that because you have to solve the case as it is given to you. Yeah, so now what are the things that you need to bring to bear in the case analysis, whether it's a written memo or a presentation? You have to give most importance to the case data, but you also need to bring in theory from the course. Okay, what is it about high tech marketing that you can bring into the analysis of this course as well as your own experience? But remember, experience is a two-sided sword. Sometimes it can help and sometimes it can narrow your perspective. So it's really very important that you have some vigorous discussions and debates within your group. Don't succumb to groupthink. You know, one person should not dominate, but different people have different experiences, and you should feel free to share them and even challenge and provoke each other because that's the way it is in real business, right? Nobody knows the truth with the capital T before launch. All of your theory and logic and data help you to persuade each other that one course of action may be superior to others. But it's all risky, and it's only after launch when consumers vote with their pocketbook that you know whether something has succeeded or not. So we try to simulate that process in these group work as well. You know, debate and discuss.
May I have a quick question?
Yes, please.
Antti here. So what was the deadline if we have 21st Zoom communication? So when do we have to deliver then the presentation?
The
Is
presentation
it
is,
only the day?
yes, it's due on that date, 21st of November. But if other groups are writing memos, then the memo has to be submitted 1 week earlier so that I have read them before I come to Lapiranta.
Okay, so that's the 14th and a week before for the
Right.
other, I mean, for us. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good clarification.
Just to add to that question, so the memos is submitted on 15th, a week earlier,
Yes.
and then the presentation does not need to be submitted to you, but we can directly present on the day.
Yes, that's right. I don't need any documentation for the presentation because I'll be there live.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
But remember, you don't have to submit the memo for the same case that you're presenting. You only have to submit memos for the two cases that you're not presenting. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We try to keep the work manageable because it's going to get quite crazy towards the end of the semester. Okay. Now I want to go and share again, but my window just got minimized. Sorry, I just lost my icons. Bear with me. Oh, the sharing is on, right? You can still see the document. Can you share? Can you see the syllabus?
Syllabus. The syllabus.
Yes.
Okay, so I can continue there. Let me go to the assignment. Okay, now this is really important. The sections of the memo or the sections of the presentation, three sections: problem definition, analysis, and recommendations. Now, problem definition, it has to be from the point of view of the protagonist or the main character in the case. Okay, because there could be the company may have many different problems, but how do you pick the ones to focus on is who is the main character or the key decision maker. Probably the person who gets most cited most often, right? So you should be able to pinpoint the protagonist, and then from her or his point of view, what are the problems. Then the analysis is generate some alternative solutions to the problem and analyze their pros and cons. So all of the solutions must address the defined problem. You can't have any solution which is disconnected from the problem. And the number two is not any generic SWOT analysis. I don't want any SWOT analysis of the organization. My analysis is just what are the strengths and weaknesses of each proposed solution. Try to be balanced, comprehensive. And then in the final section, you make some actionable recommendations that should flow from the previous analysis. In other words, there should be very strong linkages between the three sections. The problem definition dictates what the solutions are, alternative solutions, and then the recommendations must flow from the analysis. So this is what will make the whole memo or the presentation persuasive. And remember that you're doing a role play here. You are a staff, your group is a staff member or a consultant advising the protagonist. This is extremely important. You know how sometimes in business your boss will come to you and say, look, the performance data is not good. I don't know what the root cause is, but I want you to figure it out and tell me what to do. This is a very common scenario in business. I hope you would agree if you have work experience. Sometimes the bosses have a very big span of control. They only see the high level reports. Okay, is the trend going up or going down? But then they depend on their staff or consultants to figure out what the problem is and recommend solutions. So that's what your role is. Okay. So whether it's the memo or whether it's a presentation, you will follow the same structure. The only difference is that for the live presentation, as the audience, we get to ask you some questions which you then have to answer. So again, that experience is more like a real business meeting. Try to be creative when you're doing a live presentation, bring in some nice graphics or some humor, right? All of the presentation skills that you're taught in the masters and earlier programs, bring that to bear, because you want it to be persuasive and you want to bring value to anybody who's watching it. Okay, then I give you the assessment guide or the rubric. How will your papers and presentations be judged? There will be 4 criteria: structure of the presentation, creativity, analysis, and feasibility. So each of these has a scale from 1 to 4. Maximum points is 16. And it's in this analysis, where I've said sophisticated analysis that includes your ability to bring in theory. Okay, so on the one extreme, the case could be just analyzed without bringing any theory from the course, but then we are not doing justice, right? If you really want to do well, you need to cite some good theory that we know from general business, from marketing, and especially from the high-tech marketing course. So that's how you will be evaluated. And then this is the workload report. So now let me stop the share and then give you a chance to ask anything more. I will say this, that if there are any technical terms in the case that you're not familiar with, right, and you're not able as a team to figure out what they mean, then by all means send me an email and I will reply within 24 hours. I don't want you to be handicapped because of jargon or because of, the case may be too American or something like that. I want you to be able to understand it, interpret it, and then do the analysis. So how does this sound? Are you excited about this part of the course?
Yes.
Sounds like a work.
Yeah,
Just do
it
it.
is. But then again, remember that now we don't have any more Zoom meetings until we meet in La Piranta. So if you need any assistance, feel free to email to my Gmail, and I'm happy to set up Zoom meetings with each group if you need any assistance or answer questions by email. But you're right, Anti, now the ball is in your court to do the project management, right? Do the project management, divide up the work, and then make progress. But I'm sure it will be a good learning opportunity.
Can I ask one additional question?
Of course.
Not related to the case studies, but webinar 4.
Yes.
I saw on the our Moodle that it's gonna be held on 8th of December.
Yes.
And for that, we are only supposed to read these 3 articles that you provided about artificial intelligence and Bitcoin bubble, and one more. I think it was also related to artificial intelligence.
That's
and
right.
That's it.
It's a Zoom meeting. It's a Zoom meeting like we do our webinars. It's webinar 4, and it will introduce some more of these topics which were not captured in our book, right? These have come up in the last few years. Those 3 readings are all that you need.
Yes, I'm pretty interested in this because I'm working actually in the artificial intelligence industry.
Okay.
So let's see.
Very good. So that's where I will also hope that you will contribute to the learning of all of us.
I would love to.
Yes. Very good.
Thank you.
Any other topics or questions you would like to bring up? So, I had slotted another hour in case we needed it, but I don't think we need it now. So I will end the webinar right here. Thank you all for your participation. Good luck with the group work on the case, and I look forward to seeing you in La Piranta next month. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And safe journey.
Yes, thank you.